welcome back to another edition of Bailey Price Media Live.
Bailey Price Media, I like it.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another edition of Bailey Price Media Live. If you're just joining in, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, become a member of the Bailey Price Media Army today. I got a lot to talk about with you today. I got a very, very special guest joining you, and I can't wait for you guys to meet him together here. Lots to talk about today, including Jaden Rashada transferring to Sac State, Cash Cleveland, Colorado offensive lineman, first true freshman walk-on starter in the history of the Colorado Buffaloes, transferred to Texas Tech. We're going to discuss that. We're also going to discuss my boy, and shout out to my former teammate, Efton Chisholm, getting not drafted, signing with the New England Patriots as an undrafted free agent. I know he's just going to go kill it under Coach Vrabel. We're going to discuss that. Colorado signing a new Florida State, former five-star transfer wide receiver. We're going to discuss that and so much more. But if you're watching, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, become a member. I'll introduce my special guest, writer for collegefootballnews.com, Pete Fiutak, joining the show. Pete, what's going on, man? Happy Tuesday. I can't thank you enough for joining, my man.
Oh, thanks for having me on. No, it's post-draft stuff, so now it's all college football again all the time. So it's a fun weekend, fun stuff all the way around, and now it's on to the more fun stuff. I love the off-season time of year for college football. So this is kind of like getting ready for the pregame show for the next several months.
Definitely. And as you know, college football off season here with the transfer portal just getting crazier and crazier. More things that spring ball is essentially gone here. You see some teams electing to do spring games, but other teams electing to do more of an NFL style, spring period here. The NCAA obviously denied Deion Sanders and Fran Brown's request for joint spring games here. So unfortunately, no new stuff here in the spring for college football for us to discuss. But Pete, let's waste no further time and get into it, man. We got a lot to discuss here. And let's go ahead and start here. This is somebody who I talked about with Super Bowl champion. He actually coached this kid at IMG, Sean King. I talked about this kid with him. Jaden Rashada, former five-star quarterback, has transferred to his fifth school in less than 3 years here. He's transferred to Brendan Marion, the pioneer behind the go-go offense, and Sac State. He transfers over from Georgia, had a stint at Arizona State as well, committed to Miami, flipped to Florida, still has an ongoing lawsuit against the University of Florida and Billy Napier. But Pete here, Jaden Rashada commits to Brendan Marion and Sac State. What are your thoughts on this commitment here? Go ahead.
Kind of the wrong time to do this. I mean, like, if you're going to make a splash, you don't do it when Shaq's about to take over your college basketball program. You kind of sucked up all the oxygen out of that room. Look, when it comes to these quarterbacks, I mean, first of all, the transfer portal for college is kind of tough because, if one guy, unless it's a quarterback, one guy's not necessarily going to change everything. Most of the time, it's like a final piece of the puzzle. It's where if you are a big monster program and you need a left guard, you go pick and choose from the left guard, from the left guards. If you need a wide receiver, look at Ohio State last year, who loaded up on guys who were transfers, who stepped up their offensive line. Caleb Downs might be the best player in college football last season, but he's a safety, so he doesn't get enough respect for that. And so it's really for those programs to find that final guy. And we saw we just came off this NFL draft where, usually over the last, million years, the Big Ten and SEC accounted for 40 to 45-ish% of the draft. This year was around 75. It was because all the transfers are moving up. Because if, you go to Central Michigan and you're good, Michigan will find you and get you, So the transfer portal is weird. It's a long-winded way of kind of getting to Rashada, where the quarterbacks are obviously the guys who can make the biggest impact. But if you're a quarterback, you only use one. So if you're an offensive lineman or you're a corner, you can go to some other school and you'll find your way in the rotation and be fine. But if you're a quarterback, you want that starting gig. And if you're not the starter, the vultures will come in and get you. The problem with that, though, is not all these guys are great. So you have 5-star guys all across the board who are used to being treated and, thought of as the next big thing. And then all of a sudden they're just not. And it's hard. It's hard to find these guys who are going to kick in and be these, the quarterbacks. And so you've got guys like Malachi Nelson, who's going to UTEP. You've got Nicky Evers, who I don't even know where he is now. But these, look at Ohio State. Look at Alabama. They're loaded with 5-star quarterbacks who are never going to start and go on to somewhere else. So, guy like Rashada, well, okay, Sacramento State, they're going to move up to the FCS world in the next year or so. Yep. Gives him a shot to show what he can do. And if he's great and he puts up big numbers, the NFL scouts will find him.
Definitely. And you mentioned him kind of going to a lower level at Sac State. And we're going to talk about Rashada's lawsuit in a second. But let me ask you, he goes to a guy in Brendan Marion, pioneer behind the go-go offense, obviously had some success over at UNLV. Brendan Marion is also a JUCO product as well. My boss is the Last Chance U coach, Coach Jason Brown. So we highlight all junior college products on this show. But let me ask you about Brendan Marion, pioneer behind the go-go offense, taking over Sac State. Obviously, you just mentioned they filed a petition with the NCAA to move up from FCS to FBS. Currently, they play in the Big Sky Conference in the FCS against teams like Eastern Washington, Montana State, and et cetera. What are your thoughts on Brendan Marion taking over the Sac State program? Right now, they have the #1 transfer portal in the FCS, as far as I know, and I know Brendan Marion's going to really level out the program. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, that's what you do. I mean, if you are I don't want to say lower level program, but if you're a little bit of an outlier, if you're not Ohio State, if you're not USC, if you're a Sac State or someone like that, you find the guys who can put together the fun offenses that are going to crank up lots of numbers, because what do guys want to play in? They want to play. How do you get a shot? You get a guy who say, hey, look, why are you coming to Sacramento State when you've seen, Florida and Arizona State and these other top schools? Well, you come here, you're going to throw for a bajillion yards if it works out. It doesn't always work.
Right.
Some of these guys think like, oh, I'm going to just walk into this situation and be the starter and everything. And it doesn't always happen like that. But we're just coming off, who's the dream tail? We're just coming off of this. Cam Ward goes from being a 1-star recruit, goes to Incarnate Word, throws for a gajillion yards, goes to Washington State, keeps that right offense, clicks for him, and shows what he can do. Goes to Miami, then he becomes the #1 overall pick in the draft. So that's the dream for these guys. But to get on that radar, you got to put up the big giant numbers. So if you are someone running something like Sacramento State, it doesn't really help to have a great defense and win games 10-7, because you want to make a splash, and you do that with offense.
Definitely. And we haven't seen too much of Rashada in college football. Ironically, as much as we talk about Jaden Rashada, we haven't actually seen too much of Jaden Rashada in college football since his days at Arizona State. Like I mentioned earlier, Jaden Rashada currently has an open lawsuit against the University of Florida and Billy Napier over alleged NIL funds that apparently were not paid out to him, over $14 million reportedly. And Pete, I wanted to ask you about the state of NIL in college football. I think it's an ongoing issue that we continue to discuss. It's causing more and more issues as we go on. I think we all want the players to get paid here, but the system I think is flawed for sure here, as Jaden Rashada's lawsuit against Florida here continues. What are your thoughts on NIL in college football? Are there any tweaks that you would make to the system that would improve it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're right. The problem is you have to, in theory, these guys are supposed to go to college and learn. So we're treating this like they're pros, and this is a minor league, professional system. When in reality, everyone's got to keep in mind it is all based on going to school. And so why did the transfer portal end now? Well, if you have a kid, kids anywhere, May 1st is the deadline for regular students. This is commitment day, where you got to commit or go somewhere else. That's when real colleges and real students close everything up. So why is this transfer portal now? It's not for football. It's because they got to know it for a student aspect of this. Like, not everybody can get into UCLA now. Not everybody can just transfer into, Notre Dame or Duke or places like this, because they have to actually, again, theoretically, go to school. So the problem with this transfer portal thing is there's just no way to properly regulate it, because every time you try to do it, you can't tell any normal kid who wants to transfer from one school to another to go to a different, psych program or something. They just do it. And so it's the same thing for college football players. There's supposedly students who might want to go and say, oh, I like this history department better, which, we know that's not right. But that's in theory how this is supposed to work. NIL, when they first did this, they got it right because look, if some goofy booster wants to give you a tractor or something like this, or give you a bag of cash, okay,
Right.
knock it out, go for it. If you want to get an ad deal, through Disney or Coca-Cola or whatever, okay, great. Where this runs into a problem though is when all of a sudden schools are saying, hey, we are going to pay, you have a $10 million thing, $20 million or more to pay for college football players, where English departments are like, hey, wait a minute here, you're cutting us for this and you're getting linebackers. It's a rough way to do it. So what you're talking about specifically here when it comes to, players and, like Nico's situation and Matthew Sluka last year and everything, is that they don't have necessarily agents. They're not savvy. There's no laws here. There's no rules. They're going on just handshake deals, and they can't collectively bargain. There's no players union. And so it's just a real giant hot mess that you can't really contain without recognizing these guys as students first and players second. And obviously nobody does that in the real world.
Yeah, no one does that. I think we look at it as what it is: professional football. Essentially, at this point, it's pay for play. I think NIL was designed in the way you mentioned, to where a car dealership or somebody that wants to, support you does that. But now I think it's turned into a different product, so to speak. And professional football is the way I look at it, Pete.
Well, and to your point, real quick, is not to cut you off, but to your direct point is that look at the NFL draft that just happened. Everyone thinks they're going to be a pro football player. Everyone thinks, oh, I'm just going to go to the NFL. We know that the 276 guys drafted in the NFL right now, 230 of them are probably not going to work, or actually less than that. Like 200 of them are going to be cut, be out, not make any money, and all of a sudden they're going to be 26 years old and have to go, they're all going to try to do what you're doing and, get in the media, or do a podcast, or, try to find a job and realize, uh-oh. So now with NIL, it's hard to blame the players and be like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to make money at the next level. So why not cash out now? Because this is when I might have my only shot to do this.
Definitely. And I don't put the players at fault at all, especially with the system is so, people call it Wild Wild West. It's because it's unregulated. Like there's no regulation. The NCAA is powerless, so to speak, when it comes to regulating this, and we see them continue to become powerless here. But like you mentioned, well said. Let's move forward, Pete. I wanted to ask you about another transfer here. Interesting story here. Micah Hudson, former five-star wide receiver, committed to Texas Tech, played a season at Texas Tech, has I think 8 or 9 catches for not very many yards. Then he transfers to Texas Tech, and Micah Hudson was famous for this alleged NIL deal, which I'll go down and read the alleged NIL deal here. $700K minimum waterfront up front for 1 year, separate NIL deal for 3 cars for family members, personal driver with Cadillac SUV for Micah to drive from spring practice through the end of the season, medical time off, and playing after injury determined only by Micah and his family. Family hotel and travel arrangements paid each game with up to 10 members to have travel tickets and costs paid for. All this goes out of the window. Micah Hudson is transferred back to Texas Tech, and he goes back to Joey McGuire and Texas Tech, who seem to be having a pretty successful offseason and transfer portal recruiting class here. Pete, what are your thoughts on the situation? Micah Hudson going back to Texas Tech shortly after leaving here, just 3 months later.
Hey, first, no one's going to give it to you if you don't ask. So ask for it. Maybe in this world, go give it a shot. Maybe they'll do all this stuff for a couple of them. Like, yeah, fine, give it. Go for it. I kind of treat some players like Hudson. I deal with recruiting. I never really liked it that much because it's a lot of hoo-ha and there's a lot of time spent over guys who aren't going to pan out. A little bit of the same with the transfer portal, because remember, for all the thousands of guys in the transfer portal, only a few actually get money or actually transfer or leave to go somewhere else and end up signing for somewhere else. So it really is kind of a hit or miss. We only focus on these top guys. There are a slew of other guys who are thinking, well, I'm never going to play for, XYZ state, so I'm going to go in the portal so someone else will take me. I kind of see it more as the bigger picture. Where's the momentum? And that's kind of with me. I don't care if, Johnny 5-star, the recruit signs with, Texas A&M or Washington or USC. But if those schools get 4 or 5 of them, okay, now you're seeing kind of a thing, because one guy's probably not going to make it. But out of the 4 or 5 guys, 2 or 3 are going to make it. That's what Georgia and Alabama, Ohio State do every year, is that, the top of the top guys don't always pan out, but those 4th and 5th guys, sometimes do. So in case of Texas Tech, all right, maybe this works, maybe it doesn't. But you can see they've got a lot of guys coming in. You can see that out of all the recruits, they're boosting up the talent level. They're boosting up the options. There might not be any one guy who's going to be the guy, because there's a pretty set of quarterback as is. But all you're doing is you're boosting up the overall base of players to choose from, and you're just making it a better overall program. And so you can kind of see some schools have a little more money to blow around than other schools. And that's where usually the Power 4 conference teams are a lot better. And even there, some just don't want to buy in and pay for these guys because the payoff isn't there. Basketball, it's a bigger deal. Basketball, you get one guy and you change around your program. Yeah, maybe not for Rutgers, but it's 2 NBA, top 5 picks, and they didn't do anything. But for the most part, if you get that's why I can tell from page views and clicks and stuff, the basketball transfer portal is a bigger, giant deal, because again, 1 or 2 guys, you go from mid-level to Elite 8 contender. Football, it's really finding pieces of the puzzle to fit in. So for Texas Tech, it's not just about the individual here. It's about that they've gotten a bunch of guys coming in, because those Texas guys down there, they want to compete with the guys they're getting giving them a hard time at A&M and Texas, all those other Texas schools, and they're putting out the money for it. So you asked before about the positive about NIL. Well, in the normal world, Texas Tech doesn't compete with any of these other schools on the highest level. NIL, if you can get the guys and you pay for them and someone else does it, you can make yourself better pretty fast.
Yeah, and in Texas Tech's case, I think that's what they're trying to do, at least with Joey McGuire there as their head coach. They recently retained their general manager, who I know Notre Dame was trying to go after. You see more teams across college football like to bring in a general manager to kind of oversee it's a new term for director of football ops. Texas Tech retains their general manager, their booster, the top guy in their NIL sold his oil company for I think $4 billion or something. There's definitely money rolling into
go throw it around. I think Texas Tech, by the way, I think there's a crazy fun stat. I'm going to get this wrong, but I think they've only had like 1 10-win season in their history.
Really?
I've got this right here. I know it's a crazy stat. I was just looking other stuff up. I'll do this. This is good podcasting, by the way. I'm going to look up research on the fly here. I think they had actually, I lied. They have not. They had a bunch. They had 6. But they were all like in 1953, 1938, 1932. They've only had 1 10-win season since 1976. And that was the one giant year under Mike Leach. So we always think of these programs, so to do this on the fly, I'm doing this for another article, but we always think of a lot of these programs as these monster college football programs. A lot of them don't win like you think they do. And Texas Tech is one of them. And if you can buy your way to an extra win or 2, and all of a sudden, we know how this works now in the expanded era, if you can just do something a little bit extra, you can get in there and make the college football playoff.
Definitely. Well said. And let's stick on Texas Tech and move forward here. There's another transfer I got to ask you about. This is I think a pretty big loss for Colorado, more than people might realize. Colorado transfer offensive lineman Cash Cleveland signs with Texas Tech and Joey McGuire. Cash stepped up last season for Colorado, playing 6 games as a true freshman walk-on coming out of IMG Academy. He was teammates with Colorado left tackle Jordan Seaton this past season. Cash stepped up for Colorado center Hank Salikas, ironically, in the Texas Tech game, where Hank Salikas struggled with the snaps here. Cash Cleveland steps up, and the rest is history. Cash goes on, earns accolades as a freshman, true freshman All-American from On3 Sports and others here. Now he transfers down, apparently after Colorado wouldn't put him on full scholarship after his performance as a true freshman last year. Transfers down to Joey McGuire and Texas Tech with all that money. Pete, what are your thoughts on this transfer? Colorado losing Cash Cleveland. Any thoughts there? Go ahead.
It's Coach Prime's got someone better in mind. Like, look, it's ugly. Fans don't like this. But no matter what you think of Colorado and Coach Prime and that whole situation and all the hullabaloo and the circus and the reality show and everything, it's how you're kind of supposed to do it in the modern era. It's nice to think that you've got a bunch of, Colorado students who are out there playing, for Colorado, and yay, they're good guys and they're good students and all that. But if you can go get a better player, you go do it. If you can upgrade a position, and that's what Prime's doing, is that it's hard to play for him. It's not, he makes people work. He makes people try. I mean, but what gets lost in all the Colorado and all the Shador and all the Travis Hunter things is it's been a razor thin team. They got up fast because Colorado was dead for so long, and they went from zero to, they're moving up. This was anybody else in any other program, you'd be hailing this as, they're taking the incremental steps to get better and better. Everyone's expecting to win national championships. That's just not how this works. But the talent level still isn't there, and Sanders is still trying to go get better and better players. So, maybe Cleveland didn't mesh in with, what the Coach Prime atmosphere and how this all works and everyone. But, so again, Texas Tech wants to pay him, and Colorado's like, okay, we're going to go get a different guy who's going to fit this system.
Exactly, and Cash goes back to his home state of Texas there. And I think Colorado's offensive line coaching situation, Colorado had Phil Lodehold, former NFL right tackle, played 10 years in the league. Colorado had him as their offensive line coach this past season. Lodehold goes to Mississippi State. Colorado brings in former Colorado Buffalo, former Cowboy Andre Gerard to go with Gunnar White, who's already in the building. He's been with Deion since Jackson State. They also got George Hageman, played in the NFL as well. So they got 3 NFL guys now in the offensive line room. It could very well be they're trying to beef up competition, so to speak. Maybe didn't want to put Cash on full scholarship. Cash moves on to Texas Tech. Pete, let me ask you, going down to Texas Tech here, like you mentioned, they're really having quite the offseason here. In the top five of schools in spending in the transfer portal, have one of the top transfer portal classes in the country. And before we get your take on this, here's Josh Pate talking about Texas Tech's wild offseason, bringing in a lot of talent down to Lubbock. Take a listen.
Texas Tech pulled the lever very hard. You see them right there. They're the number 2 portal class, but they're by far the biggest just all-in portal lever puller, as I would call it. You could call it portal dice roll or portal roulette. I just call it the portal lever. They looked at the landscape, and they said, let's just go all in. We haven't had a double-digit win season since 2008. Let's just go all in. And all in they went. They took 20 kids. They took 13 blue-chip kids. I was out there about 3 weeks ago. When you walk around the building there, they look physically, when you just watch the players walk around, it looks like you're in Ann Arbor or Athens or somewhere like that. Maybe not quite Athens, but if you go to South Carolina or you go to Arkansas is a really good example. Just anywhere where you're in one of those major conferences, there are alien-like bodies just walking around the hallway. And you wonder, where did they find these people? It's what it looks like at Texas Tech right now.
Man, and add Cash Cleveland to the mix. Pete, what are your thoughts on Josh Pate's comments there? I think after a down year in the Big 12 overall, I think the Big 12 definitely cannibalized itself last season. I think the teams at the bottom who were projected to be at the bottom of the standings ended up being at the top. It's very, very ironic. How do you feel about Texas Tech and the Big 12 faring into this season? They get their quarterback back, and go ahead.
Josh had my 2008 stat there on the double-digit stuff. But, there is now, you have to remember, everyone's got to relax a little bit on this. If a player is good, he's not transferring unless he's at a smaller school to a bigger school. He might go somewhere else to get a little more cash, a little more money, but what's kind of the unsaid part about all this is if any of these guys were good, they'd be at their old schools, so they might look different and they might get different parts. But if you're going from a Power 4 program to another Power 4 program, that means you're just kind of okay at college football, unless you are moving up, way up in stature. Or if you are, you mentioned the idea of, the guys looking different in Athens and, certain places. Yeah, you hang around an Alabama locker room for 10 minutes and, you see how gigantic, in Athens and Ohio State. What's the difference? These guys just look different. They're all prototype NFL guys. And so it is a different animal. With that said, it's the Big 12. Look, not the conference shame here, but Texas Tech's not winning a national championship. I mean, in the new era, it's every year it's going to be, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, whoever the big hot team is from the superpower Blue Bloods. But the Big 12 from top to bottom, every team is okay. Cincinnati's better this year. Houston's better this year. Kansas is better. Last year at this exact time, who were the locks to win, to be in the race? Well, it was going to be Arizona. Utah was the best team. Oklahoma State, and they all died. So if you're Texas Tech, you've got a whole mishmash of teams that are all between 8-4 and 5-7. And if you're good enough as is to be a bowl team, and all you need are those 2 extra wins, hey, go play for the Big 12 championship, and you are in the mix for the college football playoff. And that's, again, what these transfers are. They're not total game changers, but in bulk, they add a lot more depth to the mix.
Definitely, and they're pieces to add to a puzzle, Pete. And like you mentioned with the conferences, I thought it was interesting, Cash, transferring within the Big 12. When you look at linemen that are trying to project and go to the NFL, I don't know if you looked at this past NFL draft. I believe you mentioned this earlier. I don't know what the percentage was, but most of all of them SEC or Big 10. Not Big 12 in there, and there's a reason behind that. They run the ball in that conference. Big 12 don't run the ball like that when it comes compared to SEC and Big 10. So I think with the offense lineman in Cash's case, I thought it was interesting. He goes down to Lubbock there. And interesting, nonetheless, big pickup for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders. Pete, I can't thank you enough for joining. My final question to you, I want to ask you about this. I got to talk a little Buffs here before we get out of here. Colorado lands a commitment from former 5-star wide receiver Hakeem Williams. Hakeem comes from Florida State as a Florida State transfer here, 6'2", 215. Pete, you see Colorado going after these big body wide receivers here. Hakeem, they landed another transfer in Sincere Brown, Campbell wide receiver transfer, big 6'5" wide receiver here. Colorado gets another one here. Pete, how do you feel about this this commitment for Colorado, and how do you feel about Colorado post Travis Hunter and Shador? They got Kadon Salter versus Julian Lewis as the quarterback battle. Obviously, Kadon Salter played at Liberty, threw for 5,000 yards, played for 4 years, rushed for 20 touchdowns as well. Julian Lewis, 5-star quarterback touted, came from Carrollton High School in Georgia here. Hell of a player, and Colorado lands him, flips him from USC. How do you feel about this? And then the proposed Shador and Travis era for CU?
I say this is Deion Sanders probably, when I was growing up, he's probably my favorite athlete, player, personality ever. So I've always been a fan of the act, the guy, the show, the whole thing. And again, there's 2 ways you got to look at this. One is, again, if this wasn't Deion Sanders, if this was, John Coach, any random no-name guy, you'd look at Colorado. And again, like I mentioned before, this would be a massive boost because they were so bad for so long that they had one good year here and there, but how this works, it doesn't matter where you're at. Even like look at Clemson under Dabo, look at Michigan even under Harbaugh. Harbaugh got good right away, but then they slowly build up to get where they got. You have to keep building, and it by any other measure, the Coach Prime era would be a massive success. But because they face planted in the bowl game this year, because they didn't play that great a schedule, and then they had needed a couple of big wins to come through. But still, you're not going from 0 to Ohio State here. You're going just to be competitive if you're Colorado. So the program doesn't get enough credit for that. On the flip side, he's doing what you have to do in the modern era and get players, but this is totally the all frosting, no cake team. So. They get the shiny guys. They get the really good players, who can come in and fit the system. But this only really works. College football, you still got to do both. You still got to have the strong recruiting classes where you take the 140-pound, guy and build him up into a 290-pound offensive lineman. You need the guys who, you have to see 3 to 5 years ahead and say, okay, this guy's good. It takes a while to build that up. Again, Coach Prime's only been there for a few years. That takes time, and he's not going to be patient with this. And so you have to have that mix. And so at the moment, They don't. And so Shedeur was obviously great. Travis Hunter was obviously great. But it was a very, very, again, shiny object team.
Yeah.
Let's see what they can do going forward. Let's see if they can kind of win on a more regular basis. You mentioned offensive line over and over again. Shedeur almost got killed last year because he got hit so much. You got to be able to run the ball a little bit. You got to play more defense. And they started to. Again, this program was going from nothing 2 years ago. And last year they started to kick in. So as long as everyone's expectations are tamped down a little bit, which is kind of hard to do when they're on TV and every ad out there and all the hype is there.
Tough.
They just have to kind of chill the expectations and just keep increasing the win total each and every year. And eventually, hopefully they get there.
Yeah, they're building, Pete, like you mentioned, and you'd like to see it go up every year. Obviously, Coach Prime came in to CU, 1-11 team. We know what CU was before Coach Prime, and now coming off a 9-win season, first real success for Coach Prime at Colorado. Now we're going to really find out this season how good of a coach Coach Prime really is, how good of a recruiter I think Coach Prime really is, because we can't mask big issues with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter anymore. I'd like to see some run game variation. They brought in the Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk as a running back coach. I think that's a great get for them if they can, if Marshall can have a real impact on the running game.
And if any 18-year-old kid knows who Marshall Faulk is, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing, Pete. Kids my age, they just don't know. But I think with Marshall Faulk, we're going to really find out going into next season, how good of a coach Prime is and a recruiter Coach Prime is. One thing I wanted to ask you, Pete, Coach Prime recruiting, he's elected to go FaceTime visits. He's definitely has a different style of recruiting than traditional college coaches. And it's just because I think that's the Coach Prime effect. You see Bill Belichick going and doing all these in-person visits and stuff with him, since he's taken over in Chapel Hill. But one thing I wanted to show you here, I interviewed Colorado AD Rick George during their bye week during the season. He talked about Coach Prime doing these FaceTime visits and the way he's changed recruiting with social media. Take a listen.
Back to when I was here in the 80s, it was all about handwritten notes. That was the only way you could get an advantage on anybody. But today, nobody does it better than Coach Prime. Nobody knows social digital media than Coach Prime. He can recruit to that. He sends out messages every day, and that inspires people. He gets it. I mean, he could do a home visit by doing FaceTime. I would have never envisioned that. And he's at the forefront of it.
And how recruiting has changed over the years, Pete. What are your thoughts on Rick George's comments and Coach Prime's recruiting tactics since he's been in Boulder?
Again, all frosting, no cake. That's great, but you got to do both. And if you can combine that, and Coach Prime's doing both. I mean, he's visiting the guys he needs to visit.
Yeah.
It gets a little glossed over because that's going to be like you said, the top line headline there is that, he does FaceTime visits. But yeah, if he wants a guy, he'll park on the doorstep. He does it all. But I know I have a daughter who just went through the whole college experience. And I know for a fact that you get, it sounds simple, but if you get the handwritten note, if you send a kid a t-shirt, if you send a kid I know you can only do certain things, but if you do send a sticker and a handwritten, it's just the little things like that.
Goes a long way.
It just makes it seem like, okay, yeah, you kind of do. You want me? It is the constant, feeling like, okay, I'm going into a place that I'm going to be at least part of something big, and that's how you want to feel, and that's how everybody wants to feel, and especially if you're a 17-year-old kid. Trying to figure out where to go. Oh my God, Deion Sanders is calling me. Cool. And you're right. You got to do social. I'd almost flip it the other way and say of course Coach Prime is doing it all, but everyone needs to do that now. You can't you don't have enough time to get on a plane and go visit each and every guy. Now that matters, but you've got to then, what's the problem? Why do college coaches burn out? You win the national championship or you're at halftime of the national championship. Half of your time literally spent, Ryan Day is calling recruits saying, hey, you're watching us. You win the national championship. You have confetti in your hair and you're calling recruits. That's all you do. And that's the game of being a college coach. So if you like that, that's part of the deal. And obviously Coach Prime knows what he's doing there.
Yeah, no, I don't know how much Ryan Day experiences, but if you're in a position like Ryan Day, a lot of those guys that he has on the roster are going to go there, and they're not going to be on his roster anymore. This is just the nature of the beast here with the new era of college football, man. But Pete, my man, I can't thank you enough for joining. It's been a great show here on this fine Tuesday. Talked all things Jaden Rashada, Micah Hudson, Cash Cleveland, and more. Pete, I can't thank you enough for joining, my man. I hope you have a great Tuesday. I appreciate it.
Hey, Tom, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Enjoy the Tuesday. Shout out to Pete, my man. Shout out to Pete Fiutak, writer for collegefootballnews.com, for joining the show. Great insight on all the topics that we discussed today, including Jaden Rashada transferring to Brennan Marion and Sac State, Micah Hudson transferring back to Texas Tech just 3 months later after his wild legend NIL deal. So that was great news to talk about. Cash Cleveland, Colorado offensive lineman, first true freshman walk-on to start in the history of the Buffs, transferring to Texas Tech, and Joey McGuire. Colorado landing a new wide receiver, former five-star Hakeem Williams. We discussed that and so much more. Before we get out of here, one thing I wanted to highlight and give a big shout-out to a former teammate of mine, Efton Chisholm, my guy, Monroe High School product, Monroe, Washington, goes to Eastern Washington, breaks every single record you could think of, absolute baller at Eastern Washington, gets picked up by the New England Patriots as an undrafted free agent. Efton, my man, shout out to Efton Chisholm, my man. I'm so proud of you. Man, I had a chance to play against Efton in high school twice, actually, against his team in Monroe. I had a chance to play with them and live with them at the Eastern Washington University in Cheney, where Efton broke all those records, and it was an absolute stud. The next Cooper Kupp, as I've been saying for quite some years now, and now he goes to Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. Shout out to my man, Efton Chisholm. Big time, man. He's going to go do great things, and watch out for this cat. I'm telling you, this guy's Efton's the real deal. Don't get it twisted. So shout out to Efton, my main man. But if you're watching, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and become a member of the Bailey Price Media Army today. I can't thank you all enough for tuning in. On Thursday, I got a very special guest for you, and if you're a Las Vegas Raiders fan, you're going to want to tune into this one. Q Myers, main man, covers the Raiders, talks Raiders on the news. Covers all things Raiders. You're going to want to tune in on Thursday. Q Myers joins the show. Talk Pete Carroll and the Raiders, or I'm going to ask him about Ashton Genty's potential for the Las Vegas Raiders, and Pete Carroll, whether he's the next Marshawn Lynch. Pete Carroll, you know how he loves them back. So we're going to talk about that with Q Myers. So stay tuned for Thursday. I will be live tomorrow with Matt Machesi on 0 to 6. We're going to talk all things Colorado Buffaloes football. Like I just mentioned with Pete here, Colorado signing Hakeem Williams, Florida State transfer wide receiver. Cash Cleveland transferring to Texas Tech. Dylan Raiola, Nebraska quarterback, signing an Adidas deal. I know Matt, we just went off about Raiola on Monday, so I know Matt's going to love that, considering Travis Hunter's also signed to Adidas. We're going to discuss that and so much more. We'll also be live on the Coach JB show with Big Smitty tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. You know how wild that show gets, so you don't want to miss that show as well. If you're watching, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, become a member. If you'd like to donate, go ahead and hit that super chat button, and I will see you guys on Thursday with Q Myers talking all things Raiders. Enjoy your Tuesday. I appreciate you watching. Peace.